All right. This morning we are going to continue on with our fiction stories. And today we are going to read a book called The Crane Wife. And I'll be honest, this is a book I had not read prior to preparing for this video. We didn't read it last year, so I'm anxious to find out what happens along with you. Now, this is a Japanese folk tale about a poor sailor maker who longs for a wife. And we know that in folktales that there's a moral, there's a lesson to be learned. So as we read this book, I want you thinking about number one, we talked about setting and why that is important to the story. So I want you thinking about the setting and why that's important, but also want you thinking about the lesson. If this is a folktale, what am I going to learn from this story? All right, let's go ahead and get started. It's kind of a longer book, so we're going to read half today, and then you'll listen to the other half tomorrow. Once in ancient Japan, there lived a lonely sailmaker named Osamu. Osamu's house was built high above the sea on a hilltop. From where he sat weaving his sails, Osamu could see the green salt marsh below, dotted with white cranes. As he pulled the wrap and wift of his sail fabric together, he would often think to himself, "How beautiful the cranes! Of all the birds, they are the most like the sails. It is as if the wind is held in their wings." All his life, Osamu has wished for a wife to comfort his lonely hours at the loom. But with one rice steamer, one pot for making tea, and little else, he knew his chances of finding a wife to live with him were small. So he compares the birds to the sails. Why do you think he compared the birds to the sails? How did they have a connection? I want you to think about that because it's going to be important as we keep reading. Also, we can infer that he maybe didn't have a lot of things, or he was maybe poor because he doesn't think he's going to get a wife because he doesn't have a big house. He doesn't have things in his house, so he didn't think he could ever have a wife. Autumn came in the season of storms. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to get the book for you. Red leaves fell on the dark wood of his porch, and one night, as the winds howled, Osamu heard something strike his door. Curious, he looked out. There lay a great crane, stunned and still. "Oh, poor bird," he cried, kneeling. Osamu carefully folded the crane's crumbled wings and carried it inside. How light it was, so delicate. Amazed, he warmed the beautiful creature by his fire, caressing its wings. Soon its black, shining eyes opened. For 3 days, Osamu nursed the crane back to health. Then he watched it soar away. It says Osamu is kind. Like, how do we know that he was a kind man? Yeah, like he didn't be like, "Oh, well, there's a whole bunch more birds out there, so this bird will be fine." He took the crane in and he nursed it. He took care of it. What do you think's going to happen because of his kindness? We've always heard that good things happen to good people, right? Well, bad things too. But when you do a good deed, you get rewarded somehow, sometime. So let's see what happens with that. Time passed, and one more night a great storm blew in from the sea. Through the sound of the peddling rain, Osamu heard a knocking on his door. "Who is there?" called Osamu, peering out. A beautiful young woman gazed up at him, her black eyes shining. "Who are you?" gasped Osamu. "Help me," she cried, shivering in her wet garments. "Oh, forgive me. Please come in." Osamu bowed and stared as she stepped inside. Never in all of his life had he stood close to a beautiful young woman. And you notice that he bowed, and that is just a culture thing, that in Japan, it shows respect. So it's a respect thing. Osamu served the young woman tea and rice and a little bit of the precious fish given to him by the fishermen in the harbor. Gradually, she stopped shivering. They knelt close across from each other. The lamp flame flickered. Finally, he found the words. How did she come to him in the storm? Where was her family? Where was her home? Osamu asked her many questions, but all the young woman could tell him was what her name was. That her name was Yukikiyo. I don't know. We're going to just guess. Time passed, and the frost covered the black twigs outside Osamu's window. And still, Yukiko had not left. It was beyond Osamu's wildest hope to think she might stay. He was afraid to ask her to marry him. He had so little. Yet, as the days passed, a love grew between them. With no words spoken, Yukiko became his wife. But Osamu was still just a poor sailor maker, and it came time in the little house above the marsh when there was not enough food for the two of them to eat. What are we thinking about Yukiko? Like, where did she come from? Like, what kind of person is she? Like, we're not really learning a lot about her right now, and it seems a little fishy that she just showed up in the middle of nowhere. Yukiko saw this. She came to him one day and said, "Husband, I will weave you a magic sail that you may take and sell in the village below." "You can weave a magic sail?" She pulled the dressing screen across the room, hiding him loom, which sat near the window. "Yes, but you must promise never to look at me as I work." "Why?" "Promise me," she insisted. And Yukiko promised. Yukiko began to work, and Osamu could hear the shuttle sliding and the loom rocking. Hours passed and night fell, and Osamu slept. At dawn, Yukiko was still working behind the screen. And if you get a chance, I want you to Google what is a loom and a weave so that you have an idea of what she was working on. And so you can see her still working, and he's trying to spy. Like, what is she doing in there? When at last she appeared, Yukiko looked very tired. That's natural, Osamu thought. She worked all night. But when Yukiko placed the sail in his arms, Osamu forgot everything. Though immensely strong, the sail weighed nearly nothing at all. A sound like faraway whispering lifted from the folds. Osamu put his ears close to the sail. His eyes went wide. Yukiko had woven in the wind. Osamu ran to the harbor with the magic sail, showed it to all, and was paid enough gold to live for half of a year. Overjoyed, he ran home, and Yukiko smiled. It says the sail is strong but light, and the wind wove into it. Think about the comparison in the beginning of the story. He said that the crane's wings were light but strong. So that kind of lets me know maybe what the sail might be like. Time passed and springtime came. Rain fell and the marsh again bloomed green. The white cranes returned, and Yukiko and Osamu could hear their calls. All right, we're going to stop right there, and we're going to see what happens next now that it's springtime, and I feel like they might start running out of money. And we're going to see what happens with that.